Hi, and welcome to a new year of Annie's Bookstop of Worcester's author spotlights. I'm Selena, and I am here with Kayla Olson, and she is basically has been a young adult writer, but she has ventured off now and has written an adult book. And Kayla, why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. My first adult novel, it is a fun romance set in the world of Hollywood. It features two former child actors who played love interests on the same TV show. And they were best friends in real life off screen. And so there were sometimes kind of blurred lines about, you know, are my feelings for him just friendly or are they more? But they never really acted on those. They had an epic falling out in their final season and haven't spoken to each other in the past 14 years. But now the show is coming back together to film a reunion special, like a scripted episode. And so they'll be around each other for the first time since then. And all their old feelings and all their old drama is still kind of fresh. They pick up right where they left off for better and for worse. So, yeah.
Uh-huh. And obviously, the name of it is.
Oh, it's called The Reunion. Yes.
And you can see it in the background.
Yeah,
The
it's a big,
reunion.
yes, big pink poster.
Okay. And so what do you think draws readers to these kinds of books?
Oh, wow. Probably the same thing that drew me to writing it. At the beginning, you said that I was a YA author before this, and my first two books were like survival, sci-fi, very intense. And when the pandemic hit, I just couldn't really, I didn't want to venture into that headspace. It felt too stressful. And so I pivoted to just even in just what I was reading, not just writing. I was reading a bunch of just fun romance that always guaranteed a happy ending. And it just really helped my own personal stress. And it was around that time that I got the idea to write my own. I just got hit with this idea while watching Boy Meets World at the beginning of the pandemic. And it's like, oh, I want to read that book. I want to write that book. Just seemed like a really happy headspace to be in. I wanted to write something just fun that could maybe give people a break from the stresses of their everyday lives, especially in these past few years.
So what was the exact inspiration for the reunion?
Yeah, so while watching Boy Meets World, for anyone who's not familiar, it features Corey and Topanga, who were, dating on the show pretty much throughout the entire run of the show, like 6 or 7 seasons. And they basically grew up on the show. And it made me wonder, like, when you are in that adolescent headspace and really coming into your own as a person, and your first relationship experience is being filmed and scripted, would there ever be a point where like reality and fiction start to blur? And maybe you start developing feelings for that person. Like, would it be confusing as you're growing up in that world? And of course, there's no real life inspiration. Like, those actors never had those feelings for each other, as far as I know. But it just sparks the question in my head, like, what would that be like to be in the public spotlight and have your feelings of friends or more be blurred like that? And especially since I was reading so much adult romance, I decided I would rather make it fast forward 14 years in the future to where they've both grown apart from each other and come back to kind of get to know each other in a new context as adults, after never officially acting on their feelings that they may or may not have actually had when they were together as teenagers. So,
Okay, great. And so what kind of research went into writing the book?
this was the most fun research I've ever done. Instead of researching things like, oh gosh, just all the sci-fi space and island futuristic things of my first books. This was like researching what kind of, fashion might a guy wear to a premiere of his TV show, or, you know, the exact like size, dimensions, and layouts of a trailer that a Hollywood star might be in on set for their film, um, and what kind of food they serve at the craft services table, also, I did a lot of reading about script formatting, since there are a few elements throughout the book that show like portions of the scenes that they're filming. And it was really actually enlightening. I was like, oh my goodness, copy edits were just full of just tiny punctuation tweaks. Like this M dash needs to be like two tiny dashes together. I just tried to make it look as accurate as possible, even though like in book publishing, it's a totally different world from writing screenplays. So those were some really fun things. Also like LA layout and traffic situations, since my characters live in LA. It was really helpful because both of my literary agents live out in LA, and my editor actually grew up there. So everybody kind of had a hand in helping make sure like the various settings and on-set aspects were as accurate as they could be.
Great. So what was your favorite research story? And it doesn't have
Mm.
to be about the reunion.
Oh goodness. Oh, I think my favorite research story is probably from my first book, The Sandcastle Empire. I did a lot of research by watching TED Talks about that book. It has a lot of like futuristic technology, but in a really like earthy and rustic setting. And I really just loved watching TED Talks about like futuristic inventions that could create a more sustainable Earth. But also didn't seem like as flashy as the technology that we think of when we think of the future, like life-saving, those life straws where you can like drink straight from the seawater without it being filtered, things like that. Or like I remember watching this whole video about mushrooms and like fungi networks that there was just a lot. It's been years since I wrote that book, but I remember just two or three really, really inspirational TED Talks that kind of shaped my world building and technology for that world.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So what was the biggest challenge that you had in writing and putting out the reunion? And how did you overcome the challenge?
Yeah. Oh man. Um, Biggest challenge. Probably, when everything shut down for the pandemic, I have a son, and he had been at school prior to that, and we pivoted to homeschooling when the pandemic hit. And we had actually already been considering doing that, but it it was a little different because my writing hours were different. I was used to writing all by myself, like with my headphones in my office or at a coffee shop. So all my usual environments for creating a book were kind of taken away from me. And then add in a kid who's home, and we have a homeschooling element to it all, and then all the stresses of the outside world, making that just a really challenging time. I think what really helped me overcome those challenges was that hey, I have a really sweet and organized and motivated kid who was very cooperative with, I just make him a list and be like, okay, you're going to focus for 30 minutes. I'm going to focus for 30 minutes, and we're going to come back together, and we can talk in between our little breaks. It was also helpful just to have a few writing buddies that were also writing first drafts at the same time. And so we would check in with text messages every day and be like, okay, this is my goal for the day. Let's set a timer. Let's go. And then we'd check in after every like 30 or 45 minutes and just keep each other on track. And it just also helped to be writing such a fun book, that I wanted to keep writing. Some books are harder to get words out on the page than others. And I think what really helped with this one was that I was just purely writing it for myself, just because it was so much fun. No expectations from anybody. And I could just make it whatever I wanted it to be. And it thrills me to knowing that people seem to be connecting with it, and that it's been such a fun read for people so far. So.
That must have been very difficult, doing both at the same time.
Yes.
But it sounds like it sounds like it was great to have your companions just texting
Very
each
much.
other. Yeah.
Yes, very much. They were amazing. And yeah, and their books are so good too. It's just so fun to create things at the same time as other friends who have manuscripts in the works, because oh, okay, I can do this. It's so much easier when you have other people like running a race with you, instead of just, okay, it's just me, me and this computer. They're expecting me to check in, so I better have something to show for it at the end of that timer.
Yeah, I was going to ask you later on, but are there any groups or clubs or organizations that have helped you, that you'd recommend to others that
Oh,
might, that have helped you in your career?
yes. Back when I lived in Austin, I moved to Austin. Right now I'm up in Denton, Texas. But I lived in Austin from 2010 to 2015, and that was my first time. I had just started writing like a couple years before we moved, and I didn't really know any in-person writing communities, anybody else that was doing what I was trying to do at the time. And so when I moved to Austin, it was really, really motivating just to see other people actually like treating it like, a real goal, and like publication was possible. And so they had literary agents, some of them had book deals. And so it's not really one organization so much as just the writing community in Austin. It's big and it's really strong,
Mhm.
full of a lot of really talented and kind-hearted people who really just were motivating. There's a group of like 17 of us that go
Wow.
to on a writing retreat a couple times a year, and I haven't been able to go during the pandemic, but we call it the Lodge of Death because it's just this really eccentric B&B, with the weirdest decor that you can imagine. And it, then just the rooms just keep going and keep going. And there's this long table that fits like 20 people. And we would go for like 3 or 4 nights, twice a year, and everybody would read their first page of a project that they're working on. And it's just been some of the most fun time to get to know those writers and like so many talented people, and just all be working towards similar goals, but also just like sharing life together and having meals together. And it's been a really fun thing. So I miss all the Austin people now that I'm up in Denton.
Oh, wow. I can
Yeah.
imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what character in the reunion did you love or hate the most, and why?
Ooh, oh goodness. Obviously I love my main character, Liv, but I think I'll choose somebody else just to highlight for this. I loved writing her personal assistant slash best friend. Her name is Bree. She's just a real like energetic, on top of things, go getter who kind of helps keep Liv's life on track. But not only that, she's just a really supportive person who, I think she just crosses the line of like, straddles that line of being like in the professional headspace, but also a friend, to Liv when she needs it without ever demanding too much of her. Because Liv is such a famous, well-known actress and a really private person. So she kind of just needs somebody to be there, but not somebody who's going to like drain her energy. So Brie was really, really fun to write.
Great.
Yeah. Mhm.
So, what else can we expect from you in the near future?
I have another project in the works. It is another romance, another adult romance. I can't talk about it just yet specifically,
Right.
but I can tell you that much. And I think we should be announcing fun news sometime soon, but I'll be posting on my social channels whenever that happens, and I can talk more specifically. But yeah.
Uh-huh. So you now gotten the romance bug.
Yeah, yeah. I've read so much of it over the past few years, and I've enjoyed writing it so much that it might be a little bit before I go back to other genres. But
Uh-huh. Great, great. I have some questions for you about being a writer. What's your
sure.
favorite part of being a writer on the whole writing and publishing process?
Ooh, that's a good question. My favorite part, I really just love words. I love watching them shape into, it's just a really fun feeling, like to have an idea seed in your head and then just like watch the magic of it just start to come to life on the page.
Mhm.
Word after word, line after line. I love words themselves and punctuation. I was always like a musician before I started writing, and so I have a really like lyricist brain too. And
Mhm.
so just like the shape of the words on the page is really fun for me to work with, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah,
I also,
absolutely.
yeah, it's also just, it just feels magical almost to like think of how books start as just a seed in your head, and then like I can look back on the day that I had the idea for this book, and then all of a sudden I'm like, it's a real book and these people feel real to me, and where did it come from, like I've heard that sometimes like statues, I can't remember who the famous quote about just like chiseling, and how like you're uncovering the artwork that's been always been there, like out of a block of stone. I think it might have been about, oh, I can't even remember, but that's what it feels like. Sometimes it feels like you're writing and it's just like this story just already existed, but it was up to me to just kind of find the words to bring it to life somehow.
Mhm.
Um, and so that just never gets old. It can be hard work, but at the end of the day, when you're looking at a finished book and saying, hey, that idea started from nothing, um, it's just really rewarding. And you have to do it just because you love it and not because you want people to love you for it, I think,
Mhm.
um,
That's good
enjoying,
point.
man, like, because there's always going to be another goal, there's always going to be another measure of success. And like, if you can find a way to just love it, for what it is and for the process, then you'll find a way to be happy, whether you're having success with what you write or like no success. And I've been through both, like long periods of waiting and then a lot of, really exciting seasons where good things are happening.
Mhm.
Um, but if you just learn to just, enjoy the process and take it day by day and let go of expectations, it's really, really helpful.
Mhm. Okay. So what has been your favorite adventure during your writing career?
Oh, goodness. Favorite adventure during my writing career? Probably the one that keeps coming to mind was we had a film deal for my very first book, with Leonardo DiCaprio and Paramount. It
Wow.
has since fallen apart, just because things changed, leadership changed at Paramount when we had a screenplay, I believe is what I was told, and just the new leader just swept all his current projects away. But we've
Oh,
got our
that's
rights
too
back, so
bad.
that's, but like I look at it, I'm like, oh, that was a really amazing thing that happened. And I actually got to have a meeting out there, like at Paramount, with my agents and with the team there before like things kind of fell apart. And that was, you know, another example of just like letting go of expectations and just like enjoying the process. Like that was a
Mhm.
once in a lifetime, like amazing experience that I never was on my radar when I started writing, and felt lucky and grateful even just to be on property for like a business meeting. So it's really, really fun. Who knows if we'll ever try to option those rights again, but it was just really, really fun. Yeah.
I can imagine
Yeah.
that must have been great.
It was so surreal, just all of it, that entire situation. Like I sat on that secret for so many months, not able to talk about it. And then the next day, like when the news just, I came out of a workout class and my phone was just exploding with notifications. Oh my gosh. Oh, I guess people know now.
Oh, it's too
But
bad it didn't work out though. Wow.
yeah. And I like to think I'm like, that it happened the way it happened, and it was really, really good for the book at the time. And just how, many, many projects that get optioned never see the light of day. But the good thing is, we got our rights back and we could always try to do something else with them in the future. It'd be worse if it was just like tangled up forever in a black hole of
Yeah.
know,
Who knows?
not
You could eventually,
yeah,
it could
possibly,
happen.
yeah.
Yeah. So what is the greatest lesson that you've learned in your writing career?
Hmm. I would probably go back to the whole just like do it because you love it thing. The other thing is just like you can't control anything but the work on the page. You can't control whether an agent will say yes to it. You can't control whether a publisher will say yes or whether readers will say yes once it's published, whether, and even if they decide to read it, you can't control how they'll feel about it. And I think learning to just be proud, do the very best with what you can and be proud of what you've made is the only way to stay happy in this business because, you're going to face a lot of no along the way. More and more, like there's just more opportunity for no at every single step. And you just got to like take the yeses for what they are and be happy with them and not let the yeses and the nos define you one way or the other. So yeah, I think that's probably the lesson that I continue to learn all the time, just focus on what I can control and be happy and content with whatever happens. So,
Very well said. I think that's
thank you.
great advice. Now, is that the advice, piece of advice that you would want to share with other writers, or do you have something else?
Yeah, I think so. I think one other thing, in addition to the things I'd said, is that, if you're an up and coming writer trying to get a literary agent or trying to get a book deal, so much just comes down to taste and timing. Like agents and editors, they're humans, they're readers. Like, not every book is going to be perfect for every reader. I learned this lesson when I was querying my first project when I sent letters out to literary agents, and I got a form rejection and a full request within 5 minutes of each other on the exact same set of pages. And it was just like the most encouraging thing ever because I was like, oh, well, my query, it is working. Clearly, somebody like responded really well to it. And then it's just not the right fit for this person. And so it was a really good reminder that like everybody has their own taste. And, sometimes people say no because they have good professional boundaries and they have too much on their plate already, and it's nothing to do with you. So I'd say to other writers who are trying to pursue publication, just do the work and hang in there and just don't get too discouraged if you hear no along the way. Just make the best project you can and keep trying, and hopefully somebody will connect to it at just the right time. I always like to think about it like you get your no's when you get them, and then like they're a closed door on one opportunity, but they're an open door for the one that is better that will eventually come your way. So like you might get a no today, but that might just leave you open for the yes you need tomorrow.
The better yes.
Yeah, right. The
Yeah.
more perfect yes.
So how did you learn how to write the queries? Just out of curiosity.
I there was a website, queryshark.com, that I would just read all the time. Like, it was a literary agent. I don't know if she still posts, but this is back in like 2010, probably 2011. Just lots and lots of people would submit their queries, and then she would just tear them apart on like how this could be stronger, how you could say this better, and a second. And so I just read a lot of that. I also heard the advice of just try to make it like what your back cover copy would be if it was on a finished book. Excuse me. Just try to communicate your stakes for the reader and a little bit about your characters, like what they want, what's in their way, what happens if they can't get it, and just don't overthink it. Just try to entice somebody to want to read more, and that's all you have to do, really. So I just read a lot online and read a lot of, you naturally read about what books are about anytime you pick up a book in the bookstore. So I just tried to model my query based on those pieces of advice.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you. Now, I have questions for you about you as a person. What is
Okay.
one thing that most people don't realize about you?
Oh, probably that for most of my life, I thought I would be a singer.
Oh,
I,
wow.
yeah, I auditioned for American Idol even. I grew up singing. I probably sang in like 17 weddings in one summer after college. And I thought I would be like a singer songwriter kind of person. And then one day it hit me. I was like, I think I'd rather write books because you can do that while sitting alone at a desk during the day with your coffee. It's quiet. It's not smoky. It's not like, as opposed to being a singer songwriter, you kind of have to like perform in a lot of places with a lot of people, and it might be smoky and late at night, and it just seemed like writing books was a little bit more my scene. So I kind of pivoted my creative endeavors that way. But I feel like my writing or my singing and musical interests have taken a back seat over the past decade or so, and people don't really know that they exist.
Oh, interesting. So writing more meets your lifestyle. Yeah.
Right. And also like I used to write a lot of songs like when I was dating and breaking up. And they were sad and Taylor Swifty songs, But once I met my husband, I was like, nobody wants to hear about like, oh, I'm so happy, like it became harder to like mind my own life for resource like material.
Well, writing songs is pretty much like writing poems, poetry in a lot of
Mhm.
ways. So
Yeah.
it is writing. So
Yes.
anyway,
Yeah.
that's great.
Totally. Like, yeah, you have to kind of narrow. I don't know. It's just a whole different art form. It's shorter, but no less. It's difficult, to distill just all your feelings into something short and lyrical and put the music with it. Yeah,
Oh,
it's a fun
absolutely.
challenge.
Yeah,
There's some pop
definitely.
stars and like fake music and stuff in the reunion, and I thought about like trying to make songs to go along with the book. I think that would be really fun sometime, but I just haven't like really experimented with that.
Some people do that actually. They write songs to go with their books. I think it's really fabulous that they can do
that is
that.
that is really fun. Yeah, my husband loves to do like recording stuff too. He's very musical also, and
Oh,
so
wow.
so he has a bunch of just equipment. It's like, okay, if I know if I wanted to really spend the time on it, that's the thing, like just the time commitment that it would take to really produce something that I would want to put out there. I would want to make it good because I'm a perfectionist. But
Great.
yeah.
So, my next question is, what is or are your passions when you're not writing, and how do you make time for your non-writing hobbies and things that you love?
I have become addicted to tennis.
Uh,
I always considered myself a non-athletic, uncoordinated person growing up because of my very limited endeavors on the eighth grade basketball team, in which I was like, oh, sorry, I bumped into you. Sorry. Oh, and I was terrible. I was just terrible. But I always thought I was not athletic. But then our son got into tennis probably around 2017, 2018. And we saw they had offered adult beginner classes. And I was like, oh, I think I should try to do something, and I tried it. And at first it was such a discipline to like put myself in an uncomfortable situation where I was failing all the time, you know, but I decided I want to stick with this because it's such a contrast to writing because you can see your progress immediately, whether the ball is in or out. It's physical, you run around, and eventually after I stuck with it, I actually really started loving it and getting better at it. And fast forward to now, a few years later, I play probably 5 or 6 times a week, and I'm the captain of the team. Um,
wow.
and all of that happens like in the evenings, weeknight evenings, and on Saturdays. my team matches are on Saturdays. So I'm like planning for tennis team season at the same time I'm launching this book. And it's like the two parts of my brain are a little they're very separate, but it's necessary physical and emotional release to balance all the time that I spend hunched over a desk and in my head. It's just the best contrast. And it's easy to make time for it when like you build a community in that place too, because so many of our close friends also play now, and then it's just a lot of fun. So I have to now like limit my time and be like, okay, like I can't play tennis all the time.
Yeah, you've got to write.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so a work-life balance, but I love tennis. I probably don't read as much as I did before because now I'm playing a lot of tennis, but I do still love to read also, just like all writers, I'm sure. So yeah.
That's true. Most writers do
Big
read.
readers.
I think that's a requirement of the job, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like, you're going to write a better book if you have just absorbed a bunch of people's, structure and the way with words, like you feed your own creativity by just absorbing all those stories.
So, what does your writing space look like? And what do you need to have around you while you're writing or editing?
Yeah, we're in it right now, actually. Well, this is my office. I have bookshelves. There's another one there. I'm not sure if I can turn my screen around so you can see my wall. Let me see. Yeah, I got a gallery wall up here of some artwork that inspires me, and a bookshelf full of like finished copies of my other book. And there's me and my dirty screen. I'm on my phone right now. Oops, just a second. Let me turn it back around. So yeah, usually that screen is on, so I didn't see how dusty it was until now. But yeah, I usually have some coffee with me, my headphones, and what else? Water. And a timer often so that I can like set my timer for 30 or 45 minutes and just focus. Oh, when I'm writing, I don't listen to music. Since I'm such a musical person, it'll just distract me. Even if it's instrumental, my brain will just get caught on the music. And so about 10 years ago, I started working to a thunderstorm soundtrack that I just have on repeat. And so I always have that when I'm working. It's kind of like a Pavlovian response at this point. Like when I turn it on, I'm like, oh, I'm focused. I will say it was really, really weird trying to write a book set on a space station with thunderstorms in my head. My second book was a mystery on a space station, and there's no rain in space. There's actually a scene in my book where the main character discovers like an old set of sounds from Earth, just because I was like, I gotta write something with a thunderstorm. But I tried like airplane white noise and it just wasn't the same. So I'm a little addicted to that. It's the perfect thing to like tune out excess chatter at coffee shops too. Like it'll just fade in to the background.
So you've actually answered like 3 of my other questions.
Oh.
One is,
awesome.
Do you prefer music or silence or what? And so you just answered that one.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Another one was, do you have any favorite foods or drinks? And you just mentioned coffee and water.
Yes, coffee, water, chocolate. I love dark chocolate. Just like a square of dark chocolate is all I need. It's just potent and delightful, especially with my coffee. And I'm a big like black coffee drinker. I love just especially roasted stuff from local coffee shops. And I just make it with my little espresso machine, like a little Americano, 2 shots of espresso and water. And I just drink one of those in the morning. Sometimes I'll have another in the afternoon, but it's so flavorful that I don't feel like I need like a giant pot of coffee or something.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And okay, writers often have furry or feathered or otherwise non-human companions
Yeah.
to help them through their work. And do you have any of those? And do they help you or hinder you with your work?
Yes, yes to both. We've got 3 cats. I am a total cat person. I can appreciate the occasional dog if they act like a cat. Um, um, no, yeah, we have 3 cats and they have just the funniest personalities. One of them is just like a big blob who will just be comfortable on your lap and she won't bother you. She's so sweet. Then there's Waffles. Waffles is orange and he gets into everything.
Mhm.
He will he'll knock things over. This morning I posted on my Instagram a picture of him stepping all over my keyboard. and and the other one, Coconut, she's little and she usually just hangs out with my son because she loves him so much. But yeah, they're sweet, they're cute, they're trouble, but I love them.
Yep. Yes, cats are wonderful.
Yes.
My two are do the same.
Aw. Love them.
Yeah, they're yeah. I think cats I think a lot of writers have cats rather than dogs, but
Yeah.
some have dogs too. Yeah,
Yeah.
it depends.
Yeah.
It depends, but you've heard bookstore cats.
Right. Lots of them. Like it just seems like a book story thing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, I have two more questions to ask you.
Okay.
One is, where can people find your work aside from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester? And I always put a plug in for
Yeah.
Annie's. You can you can get Kayla's work at Annie's
Yes.
if you call us at 508-796-5613, or you can send us email at orders@anniesbooksworcester.com, and it's WORCESTER .com. And where else can people get your books?
Yeah. Right now for the new one, the reunion, it comes out January 17th. So by the time this airs, I guess it'll probably be in store. Or just about to be in store. And yeah, you should be able to find it wherever books are sold, at any of your favorite indie bookstores. The ones local to me ish are Book People down in Austin or Patchouli Joe's up here in Denton. I'm also the Denton Barnes and Noble. I have good friends who work there and doing a launch party with them. It was a January pick for Book of the Month. So if you wanted in hardcover in addition to your paperback, they have a special edition through Book of the Month that you can order as an add-on and a feature book box, or you could, since it's still January, you could get it in this month's box if you haven't ordered your box already. But which is so fun. I've been a subscriber of theirs for a few years now, so it's been really exciting just to see that happen. I'm waiting anxiously for my own box to arrive so I can hug it.
I can imagine. That's great. And my last question is, how can we follow your work and share your awesomeness?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm most active on Instagram. My handle is at author Kayla Olson, and Olson is Olson, unlike the more famous Olsen twins. Um, and my website is kaylaolson.com. So any news that I have about future projects or events, you can find all the details in those places.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. And hopefully we will see more coming out from you, and hopefully the reunion will sell well.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun to chat with you, and I hope to visit your store someday when I eventually venture back inside of Texas.
Right. And if you do get to our store, you can do a book signing for us.
Love to. That would be so much fun. So,
Well, Kayla Olson, thank you very much.
thank you
Bye.
so much.